Okay, now for the endocrine system. So, the endocrine system is actually very interesting, but it's also at the same time the most confusing, I think, because it is not just one organ. It's multiple organs, and those organs are very, very small. We refer to them as glands. So, we have glands again up here in our neck, and we also have some a little bit lower down here towards your back area. And so you have these glands throughout your whole body, and those glands produce chemicals. Okay, and those chemicals give us certain reactions. So it's not like the digestive system where your stomach is actively, breaking down the food, or where your heart is, actively pumping blood throughout your body. Your brain is actively working. It's a little bit different because you don't actually see it do anything, because it happens on, again, a cellular level. So we talked about fight or flight. And again, remember, fight or flight is something as simple as, I would pick on Shelly at this point because she sits up front, and she doesn't mind me picking on her. But again, if she was just sitting right there and I was to sneak up behind her and sort of say, rah, and scare her, again, that would be her fight or flight. Maybe she jumps up in the air because she's scared, or again, maybe she just shrugs it off because I didn't really scare her, or her body didn't go into that fight or flight mode where she's on alert. It's just like no big deal. You Kanye shrug it off, okay? But we've talked about that before, and so whenever things like that happen, again, they happen in an instant. So in an instant, your body is producing these hormones and giving your body these chemicals that, again, maybe your heart does start beating faster because your adrenal gland started pumping out adrenaline. And again, adrenaline quite literally makes your heart beat faster. Which is why sometimes, again, if you watch like medical TV shows, they have that, give me that adrenaline, and it's in this huge needle, and they, dramatically stab somebody to bring them back to life. Again, if they were already dead, that's not happening, realistically speaking. But, that adrenaline does have a purpose. If this person has a really low heart rate, great, you give them this adrenaline, it can, again, increase their heart rate and maybe, again, get their body back at that homeostasis. So it's not always such a negative thing, these hormones that we have. And I know as teenagers, you probably hear that all the time, from your parents about, oh, you're just this hormonal teenager and all of this stuff. Well, your parents are right on that one, and that one's actually true, because at this age, okay, where you are in life, going through all of these, again, physical changes, your body's going through these chemical changes as well. So that part is actually true. So sometimes, again, depending on something that's completely out of your control, your hormones, you may feel sad on one certain day, or you may feel, just extra happy, or you may feel, again, what some people refer to as depression, where they quite literally can't get out of bed because they are just, again, in a lethargic place of mind. They feel physically tired. They feel, again, emotionally sad. Those are real things. And sometimes it can just be because that individual person's hormone levels are off. It may not necessarily be that, some dramatic trauma happened in their life. It just may mean that they have a hormone imbalance. So that's why it's important, if you do feel out of the ordinary for whatever reason, you go to the doctor so they can help you with those things. Because again, some people experience things like anxiety, which can lead to them having like an increased heart rate. So if you work at a high stress job, like maybe being an ER doctor right now, you're having to make life or death decisions in seconds. So, I would imagine that their heart is probably at an increased rate, because that's a major decision that you're having to make right there. So again, your endocrine system, while it may not be easy to understand, it is very necessary. So even, again, we all at one point were these teeny tiny little babies that could fit in our parents' hand. But again, now we're these huge human beings, and that's because our endocrine system is responsible for growth. So it is not just hormones that make you act crazy. There are specific reasons we have it, okay? Adrenaline is not just when you're scared, okay? But sometimes we need it when we are in a survival situation. Like if you're driving in a car and you need to immediately pump on the brake. Your heart might be racing really fast, but if you slammed on the brakes in time, you might have prevented an accident. It's also important for reproductive reasons. So that is why, for those of you who have like little brothers and sisters right now, whenever you have a pregnancy test, you just test the urine, and based on, again, the hormone levels, they are able to tell, again, yes, positive or negative. It's also responsible, your hormones are responsible for your metabolism. So things like how fast your body, again, breaks down food. You have hormones that are responsible for that. So sometimes there are people who, unfortunately, it's very, very hard for them to lose weight. And they're exercising, they're eating healthy, they're doing all the right things, but because they have something wrong with their metabolism, again, it's harder for them to lose weight at the same rate for somebody else. So that's also very important to remember that, you may gain 5 pounds eating the exact same diet as somebody else, and then you may have a person who loses 5 pounds based on eating the exact same diet. So your hormones have a lot to do with how your other systems react to things. So please remember that everybody is different, okay? But again, that's also a good thing. One thing I did want to go over, which I know you're not going to be able to see it very well, I'm going to have to post a picture of it. The main thing that we should focus on now that we have gone over all of our body systems, okay? This week will be, again, the last week of body systems. Next week, I'm going to give you guys the entire week to work on your research project, okay? So right here, again, I know it's backwards, but again, we have our organism, an organ system. So again, if we, us humans, are organisms, okay, if I was to break that down into an organ system, well, again, that can be basically anything that we've learned about over the past couple of weeks: the endocrine system, the circulatory system, the skeletal system. And then if I wanted to break that down even more, okay, then I go down here to organ. And so an organ for my skeletal system would be a bone, okay? Break it down even further than that, I have tissue. Okay, so we talked about that bone marrow and how it's kind of spongy, kind of has that consistency of a sponge. And then again, if I break it down even more, then I go down to individual cells. So one thing that I hope you guys have realized out there is that all of our systems have specific cells, okay? I don't want cardiac cells where my skeletal system is, okay? I don't want, again, my adrenal tissue forming where my stomach is. So again, all of these have very specific names. We're not going to worry about every single cell and its specific name. If you call it a heart cell, that's fine, okay? But just understand that all of these can be broken down all the way to cells. And we've gone over this in class when we went over cells and how they can be broken down into organelles and all of this other stuff. So structure is going to be something that's very important for this unit. So I'm going to give you all next week to, again, really focus on structure and function for all of our systems, okay? That's what next week will be mostly about.